Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Last night for the Braves, Darius Vines made his first start of the season. The second pitcher we've seen starting in Spencer Strider's place as they try to find a permanent replacement for him. And I thought Darius Vines' audition went about as well. He went up against the Houston Astros lineup. That's one of the best in baseball, top five in pretty much every offensive category: home runs, OPS, slugging, on base, average. And he went out there, found some struggles, faced some adversity in the first inning, allowed just the one run, and then really settled in, gave up a double, pitched around it in the second, set him down in order in the third and fourth, nearly got through the fifth. Brian Snitker turned to Yordan Alvarez probably a little early. I would say it was the right decision. Make no mistake about it. It's kind of something you see in the playoffs, pulling a starting pitcher after 80 pitches. But I think the bigger issue here is giving Darius Vines, ending it on a high note. There's no reason to make him face Yordan Alvarez, one of the best offensive players in baseball, for a third time, even though he was at 80 pitches, even though he was on extra rest. Give him that confidence going into his next start. Hopefully it's with the Braves. I expect it to be with the Atlanta Braves, but I thought he pitched about as well as he possibly could have, or as you possibly could have expected in his first start against a really, really good offensive baseball team.
Yeah, the lineup is so good. I don't know how you could find anything wrong with his outing outside of the first inning. And honestly, I think that could be seen as a good thing that, he immediately ran into struggles and then showed poise and finished out a very good outing. So even the little things you could pick apart, you could spin it into a silver lining of he faced some troubles, but he showed poise and he got out of it. I personally would have liked to see him go up against Yordan Alvarez because it's not going to get any easier. And that's probably the most difficult situation you could possibly imagine outside of a postseason moment where one of the best hitters in baseball is seeing you for a third time, a very important at bat, a potential turning point in the game. Let's see what the kid's got. But to your point, it was the right move, confidence-wise, the game, and everything like that. You'd wish Snitker would have some of that, urgency in the postseason with maybe Bryce Elder. But, I digress. Just still a little hurt.
Maybe he's learned from his mistakes. If he's doing this in April, you got to think he's going to do this in October. But yeah, you're right. I mean, obviously, he pulled Bryce Elder way too late against Bryce Harper. Probably didn't want to face the same thing for Darius Vines this early in the season. And I think ending that game on the high note was the right move. Aaron Bummer gets the comebacker. The Braves bats come alive in the ninth inning against Josh Hader, who the Astros are really starting to question that investment because he just frankly didn't look as dominant. Just even the stuff. I mean, it wasn't quite as hard as I'm used to seeing from Josh Hader. The Braves rallied off 5 singles against him, including a walk. They got 4 runs, really blew that game open. It was good to see because most of the night they were dormant. I mean, the only runs they scored were in the second inning, one of which came off an infield hit and an error from Luis Guillorme, his first start of the season. He gets a hit in his first at bat. Good job putting the ball in play. But you beat a good Astros team, and an Astros teams that it has to be feeling like they're playing a little desperately. I mean, this is a team that's been to 7 straight ALCSs, won 2 World Series, and they're 6-12 through 18 games. It's still early, but they're trying. They know how important this series is, and you get a win with the guy that you're really not supposed to get a win with, in Darius Vines. Really encouraging start to this series, and hopefully they can take 2 out of 3.
Well, you saw what this game meant to them. They were using their high leverage arms. They were trying to win that baseball game, and not only did Hader. Maybe the stuff didn't look great. The Braves were hitting the piss out of the ball. They were singles, but they were hitting the piss out of the balls. They just didn't find the gaps. It very well could have been worse than what he had given up. He only got 1 out, or maybe he got 2 outs. I might be mistaken. But, yeah, make no mistake about it. They taxed their bullpen in that first game. So that's obviously going to come back in games 2 and 3. So that's something to note.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hader pitched 2 out of the 3 nights prior to this series. So now he's pitched 3 out of 4. He had a long outing where he only got 1 out or whatever it was last night. So he's probably down for tonight. So now they're out arguably their best reliever. But at this point, you could argue maybe that's a good thing for the way that Hader has pitched so far this season. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think Darius Vines, back to him, I think he definitely earned another start in Atlanta. And I think you got to really start taking him seriously in the fact that he could be the 5th guy for Atlanta this season. I know we've talked about A.J. Smith-Shawver. I know we've talked about Bryce Elder and Hurston Waldrop and all of those guys who we may have been a little higher on entering the season. But if there was a fourth guy in this totem pole right behind those three guys entering the season, I would have had Darius Vines. And I don't think the gap, at least between him and Elder, is that far off. I mean, this is a guy who dealt with injuries last year, but had a sub-3 ERA in Gwinnett, came up, pitched pretty well in the majors in his 5 appearances, sub-4 ERA, and now he pitches really well in his first time out. I think it's time that Braves fans start to take him seriously in this conversation. I'm not going to say he's the favorite to lock it up long term, but I think he deserves another opportunity. I think he deserves a real chance to win this job, and that's no disrespect to Bryce Elder. He deserves an opportunity. I think all these guys are going to get opportunities. We've talked about Lopez. We've talked about how other injuries are going to arise, but I think for now, I would definitely, I don't know how they could not start Darius Vines 5 days from now.
Yeah, I mean, I think deserves is probably not the right word, because if you want to say deserves, I mean, Bryce Elder deserves it. He's the one. He was an all-star last year. He has better results over a longer span at the major league level than Darius Vines. And I think, if you want to say deserves, it should be Bryce Elder. But yeah, he doesn't deserve to be demoted after that start, because Darius Vines obviously went out and gave you everything that you could have asked for against, like we said, one of the best lineups in baseball. So, I think he'll probably stay up in Atlanta. And I don't think, it's a slight to Bryce Elder by any means, because I do think if we're talking deserves, Elder deserves it more than anybody. It's almost unheard of to being an all-star and then start the next year in AAA. I mean, that's unheard of. So deserves probably Elder, but Darius Vines has done nothing to deserve a demotion.
Yeah. But it is
a problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, it is. That's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about where is this depth that we've been talking about all season? When is it going to start to show itself? All right, well, we saw a glimpse of it yesterday with Darius Vines. Maybe we'll see Bryce Elder. Maybe he pitches well. Hopefully AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop bounce back from some poor first starts, but there is depth there. So overreacting to the first starts of the season is always bad. And I think they're going to figure this thing out before long.